Hello, friends, and welcome to Binge O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joy Zeldin. I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle, and I've seen almost nothing.
And we're here today to talk about Galavant Season 2, Episodes 1 and 2.
Season 2! We did it!
You're going to, blink, and then Season 2 is going to be over, because it's still only 10 episodes.
I mean, I basically blinked and Season 1 was over.
I know. It's going to be the same. It's going to be a little longer, because there are 2 extra episodes in this one. There will be one episode where I'm going to have to fight to keep my energy up because I'll be very mad about a particular thing that happens, and we'll see when we get to that.
That's just a different kind of up energy, you know?
I mean, you're not wrong. We have had angry sheep rants, so.
It's so funny because I know that 22 minutes, or roughly 22 minutes, is the, quote, normal amount of time for a TV episode, but I've been so trained by 50 to 60 minute long episodes, which is what we have a lot of now, that these episodes just feel bite-size.
Yeah, which I guess gets us into these 2 episodes, because, spoilers, before the podcast started, I was trying to figure out, what do we really talk about? Because it's kind of just a bunch of exposition in these first 2 episodes.
We're still going to get into it. We always find a way.
The first one is here's where we are now for 22 minutes. And then the second one is here's how we've slightly changed from the things we did in season 1, I guess, maybe. Or maybe we remember things wrong, I guess. Or maybe we have feelings for someone we didn't know we had feelings for, I guess.
Ooh, who's that? We'll get into it with a little bit more detail. But yeah, no, I think the exposition was necessary, because certainly some time has passed, and we need to explain how much time has passed. But I also think there were parts that they didn't do very well. But I'll point them out as we go.
Yeah, no, we'll get into that. So I think we open with little vignettes of sort of where everybody is as a character.
Yes, and so it's all done inside of a new song that the Pirates suggest, which I actually really enjoyed. I kind of thought that we were going to get just a reprised version of the season 1 Galavant song that they used for the last time on. Mm-hmm. Or, really.
Well, and throughout the entirety of season 1. It's just like Phantom of the Opera. It's every song is the Galavant opening. And I think at some point they were it's kind of played out. That was 8 episodes of Galavant. Maybe we do something different.
Maybe we write some new material. And I kind of love that they literally have the pirates say that. We open on the pirate ship. Galavant is about to jump into his song. And the pirates are like, you know what? It's a new season.
Yeah.
Winter has passed.
I love that. I love that you're able to have that that double meaning.
Yeah.
Of the new season for season 2, the new season as in a season of weather and the
time.
World.
Yeah.
A new and just I love that so much. There's nothing that makes me happier than this particular song. I think I mentioned in earlier episodes how they kind of get rid of the Galavant song in season 2 to you. So this is essentially how they do it. They have this whole new feel.
That they find a different way to do the last time on. So it's a last time on, but it's not exactly the same way it's done before. So yes, you're right. This is it.
Yeah. It's so good.
I love this song. I love this song so much. I love that it brings the cast together. I like that it makes the exposition fun. Should I just rattle through the exposition quickly?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's rattle through because we have several groupings of people, and I don't want to get too bogged down with where everyone is because again, the song is under 2.5 minutes, so it can't be that difficult.
This will be quick, right? Richard and Galavant are our favorite buddy duo, right?
Yeah.
Richard is going to reclaim his
Galavant
kingdom.
Still being a little dang it, Richard. He's not there yet. Galavant isn't the buddy yet. He's just mad.
See, really what we should do is let me run through the groups, and then we can run through this episode and talk about each group, because I would like to talk about each group. So we have Richard and Galavant together. Richard is going to reclaim his kingdom, and Galavant is going to rescue Isabel. We have the Hortensia crew, basically. That is everyone who's in Hortensia. So it's the chef, it's Gwen, it's Isabella, it's Harry, the jester.
Sid.
Nope, Sid is in Valencia.
Oh, no, right.
So then there's the Valencia crew, and Valencia is Magdalena and Gareth plus Sid. It's very, and also...
And let's not forget Sid. Sid's always, he's always the odd man out. Anyway, sorry.
Yes,
continue.
no, that's okay. Those are the three main groups. And then the rest of the episode basically just cycles between all three groups and just fleshes all of that out a little bit more. I love the Brady Bunch faces.
I know, me too.
At the end of a new season.
I also love that Sid, I guess, spoils a bit of how the season will end.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where everybody's kind of vying for the throne. And it's hilarious to me because it's like, we haven't gotten any kind of tidbit of that. And then everyone else is like, hey,
hey, man,
what?
You ruined it. But also, like, would it have been outside the bounds of a logical prediction? I don't think so, because here we have two kingdoms set up in opposition to each other, right? One kingdom having conquered and taken over the other's family. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not uncalled for, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't mad at it. I thought it was a very funny joke that he basically just spilled all those beans right at the end of the song. And you know, it also keeps you wanting to watch, right? Because, you know, in Hortensia, bless the chef and his lady. I love them so much. But they're like living their best life, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're happy to be there. They're jazzed to be there. The jesters, well,
also
we find out later, also living his best life because he's essentially making a 10-year-old laugh. And who wouldn't have fun with that all day?
And
like, those are the cheapest
all he
laughs.
does is like make a noise, and the 10-year-old's peeing in his pants, literally.
I love that whole moment. I love that the Chester is just so jazzed to be there. Then you have Isabella's parents who are also jazzed to be there because
planning a dream wedding.
They're planning a dream wedding to their daughter, to her cousin. And obviously, you know, the boy king is very happy because it's easy to keep a 10-year-old happy. Or this 10-year-old anyway.
He's a boy king with an entire kingdom and a palace to himself. Everyone's falling over themselves to serve him. And he's marrying Isabella. What's the complaint about? My favorite thing is that the way this is framed is Isabella basically going around to each set of characters in Hortensia and being like, wait, is it me? Am I the... I don't understand why I'm the only one who feels like this situation is kind of messed up. And it's like everyone is lightly trying to gaslight her, but not on purpose because they're also happy.
I know. It's definitely that moment of like, but wait, is it me?
Is it me?
But it's not just her because it's this moment of like, I think her mother puts it best in that episode where like she comes to visit her and she's just like, you're not a prisoner, Isabel. Don't be so dramatic. And she does this big like knock on the door and it's like visitor coming out, you know, like it feels very jail cell.
Yes.
And it's like, no, it's not just you, honey. It's okay. It's going to be okay.
Like, speaking of planning this dream wedding, right? In terms of her dad's reasons for wanting the wedding to be to Harry versus Galavant, her dad literally says, well, if you were marrying Galavant, I would have to pay for the whole wedding. But if you marry Harry, I only have to pay for the reception. And I was like, okay, so not really a picture perfect wedding.
As someone who recently planned and got married, I have a big feel for that one, though. I was like, oh, yeah, those numbers are high, man. If you find a discount. I mean, don't like doom your daughter to forever hating you and angry, you know, and like to completely destroying her future. Don't do that. But right. I mean, I don't know. I might even consider it for a brief second and then be like, but she doesn't love him.
I know. That's the thing. It's like down and out knight who's still sort of trying to figure himself out. Or a king. A king who isn't, as far as we know, a murderer. You know?
I mean, he's only 10. How many murders could he? Well,
Well,
I mean, Richard was also, 10 when he took the throne? Who knows how many murders he accomplished?
So many. Like, probably so many. Based on the adult he has become.
I know. But so the other thing is in Valencia. Valencia is really easy to sum up because basically you have Magdalena and you have Gareth who are just terrible roommates for each other. And Magdalena
Gareth, who is the guy who was with the queen when she killed the guy who is not really the king. Like, it's Queen Magdalena and the guy who was with the queen when she killed the guy who is not really the king.
And I love Gareth constantly trying to be like, is there a better title? Can we fix that? It feels like it has a bad mouthfeel. Can we do anything about that? Maybe.
And I mean,
and Magdalena's like, no.
That's his episode 1 plot point, basically.
Yes, he just wants a better title.
Change his title. But what I really like about this, and we can just fast forward to the end of episode 1, because I think we don't get into the bad roommate stuff really until episode 2. So his main plot point Gareth's main plot point in episode 1 is, I need a better title. Sid's also there saying he doesn't quite understand his role in all of this. Am I a prisoner? Am I a captive? Am I a servant? Just tell me, please.
Yeah, because he doesn't really have a job there.
No.
He just exists.
Exists as Sid. And what I like is that Gareth doesn't know how to read, so he asks Sid to help him read through the bylaws that explain what happens when a king is deposed. He then takes all of Sid's findings to the queen, but the way that he phrases it to the queen is that he wants to be treated as an equal. He is the true king of Valencia, and he would really appreciate it if he were treated as such. It's so the opposite of the aggressive take that you would think a character like Gareth would choose. And then Magdalene is like, okay, because it doesn't really matter to her. It's not even a fight. She just goes, what's with men and all of their emotions? Fine. Change the title.
I forgot about that quote. She definitely did. She definitely is just like, man, men, I'll just never understand it.
They just get so caught up in their feelings about their titles. Like, who cares, right? Because regardless of whether Garrett is the king or the guy who,
yeah,
she's still the queen.
I know.
The queen.
The queen. But yeah, so that essentially sums up episode 1. Although there is...
Well, that sums up episode 1 for Hortensia and Valencia. We have the majority to talk about of the episode. Galavant and Richard.
I know. The majority of the episode follows our...
Intrepid heroes? Are they intrepid heroes? What are they? What do we call
buddy
them?
Cop duo. I don't know.
Buddy cops who are not cops. I refuse to call them cops.
We could refuse to call them cops.
They're just BFFs who aren't really FFs yet.
I know. Well, I think Richard thinks they're BFFs.
Yes. I mean, that's very clear. Although he does have a special place in his heart for Gareth. And I think he understands that he's actual friends with Gareth. And he's not quite there with Galavant or even the chef, who was part of his little posse in the last season. But he doesn't have the same feelings for the chef.
No, exactly. Oh, man, I love the chef. We're going to have to talk about the chef.
When we talk about episode 2, we'll talk about the chef.
Yes, for sure.
He's, a bigger part of episode 2. But at any point, at any rate, Richard and Galavant were on the pirate ship. The pirate ship crashes thanks to Richard's terrible advice. And so for the remainder of episodes 1 and 2, Richard and Galavant are approaching the kingdom on foot. And it takes them a really, really, really long time.
There's a whole moment, I think, in fandom where did they call them Misery's Company?
Oh, I love that.
I think regardless of whether or not if they actually did call them Misery's Company, I say we call them Misery's Company.
I'm putting it in the notes. I'm putting it in the notes.
That was also why, and I appreciate the point you were making, and I completely understand it and support it, but that was also why I was having a lot of trouble not laughing.
Well, what I like about that is that specifically, and I'm being so precise about the wording here, I love that the tagline for them isn't Misery loves company, but that Misery is company
Yes.
Because listen, if they each got a chance to choose who they were traveling to the kingdom with, they would never choose each other. But here they are.
Not.
Here they are.
And they're oddly very good traveling companions. But we can't not talk about
their first
the Enchanted Forest. So Richard is bringing up this like uncle who he really enjoyed the company of. And he's kind of missing him a little bit, and they're in a certain, I think they're walking in a certain direction. And
well, they're literally in the middle of a forest, right? And as they're walking through the forest, Richard goes, "Oh no, I think we've stumbled upon the Enchanted Forest." And Galavant is like, What are you talking about, man? Like, what are you going on about? Because this is their vibe, right?
Yeah.
And Richard was just the one who had them crash their entire pirate ship, right? So Galavant is still angry at Richard about that. And Richard is like, well, there's an evil queen in the Enchanted Forest. My dad used to come here with my Uncle Keith, and there was one time where Uncle Keith, I don't remember the story, but Uncle Keith entered the Enchanted Forest, and then he never returned. And Galavant is like, no, seriously? After all of that, now we're in an Enchanted Forest, and then the sign for the pub comes up.
The sign for the pub comes up, and it is called Enchanted Forest.
They walk in. It's a pub.
And Galavant has this beautiful moment of like, it's a bar.
It's a bar. It's a bar.
It's a bar. Yeah. So they wander into this bar, which I freaking love. And those of us in the queer community immediately recognize it for what it is, which is a gay bar.
Tis a gay bar.
Tis a gay bar in the middle of this forest called Enchanted Forest, which, by the way, if there is no gay bar called Enchanted Forest, please somebody do that because it's amazing. It has to exist. Anyway, that's a Google tangent for another time. Mm-hmm. They enter into this bar, and almost immediately it's like this sort of atmosphere of, they're doing the I think the guys sort of approach them a little aggressively.
At first?
I mean,
it's more like, oh, you're new. Like, I didn't really see it as aggressive, more than like these frequent flyers.
Well, once the singer comes out,
like the frequent
it gets
flyers,
a little aggressive.
I totally agree. But everyone who's in the bar when they first walk in, the vibe to me was more like, we all spend a lot of time together. We're all very used to seeing each other. We are the frequent flyers at this bar, right? And then these two come in and it's like, aha, someone new.
Yes. 100%. It was definitely, like, hey, pretty boy kind of thing with Galavant. Which, can we talk about Galavant's beard in season 2? Because I don't know. It feels very fake. It feels like a very fake beard.
Mild spoilers. Does he keep the beard for the remainder of the season?
I don't remember.
Because it's when the season opened up, both Galavant, and Richard very clearly have sea voyage hair.
Yes.
Like, this is the hair that you get when you're trapped in the middle of the ocean and aren't really paying attention to the way you look or looking at yourself in the mirror, right? It's just like his beard is big and his hair is long. I like Richard's long hair.
The hair is windswept. I love the long hair. The long hair, I'm really here for it. It's specifically Galavant's beard, and it's like, it just feels very glued on to me, and I can't unsee it. And if it's a real beard, I apologize to the actor. I don't know what they did to it in between shots, but man, is it.
It's just like it doesn't move. It doesn't feel natural because it doesn't move.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's strange.
And it's like, it's just a lot. It is a lot of hair, and it's dense. Anyway, so Kylie Minogue is the singer at this pub.
Yes.
Which her character name, isn't it just the Queen? Or something?
That's how they introduced
Queen of
her.
the Enchanted Forest. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She doesn't get a name. But she has this amazing, what can only really be described as like a campy, almost drag queer bar number.
Like Anthem. Yeah.
And it's freaking amazing. I would listen to that thing over and over and over again. They essentially get captured in quotation marks by the queen. By the Queen of the Enchanted Forest.
I mean,
now look,
Galavant is just so good at bringing the tips in. I guess.
I know.
They have him shirtless behind the bar. They rake in the tips. And then the queen is like, well, now you work here.
I genuinely think they are actually captors of this bar. Like, captives, of this bar. Like, I'm not trying to belittle it, but it's definitely hilarious that about midway through the song, Galavant just starts tending bar.
Yes. Well, he's like pushed into it, basically.
I know.
And like the other great thing throughout the song is that Galavant is noticeably uncomfortable. And part of the reason he's uncomfortable is that everyone is hitting on him and he's straight, I guess. And that he doesn't enjoy that. B, he's getting pushed into tending bar shirtless, which was not his intention when he stopped at the Enchanted Forest. And the other really funny part is that Richard is picking up on literally none of these signals. Literally none.
Absolutely none.
He doesn't know that anyone is hitting on Galavant. He doesn't understand why Galavant is such a good bartender at this particular bar. He doesn't even understand what kind of bar he's in. Galavant at one point says, "I've never been in a place like this before." And Richard responds, "What, a pub?" And so during this musical number, as Galavant is getting pressured into these things that he does not want to do, Richard is literally there, just like bobbing along, singing, enjoying the vibe. He loves it in here. It is a happy, happy place for him.
Yeah. And why wouldn't it be?
Why wouldn't it be?
If you don't have first of all, if you don't quote unquote know what's happening, I guess.
But also good bar, good people, fun vibes.
Yeah.
He's not upset about serving drinks. He's like, okay.
I guess I can't skip over the fact that no one is actually hitting on King Richard.
No one. Literally no one.
Which I was also kind of sad about because I'm like, friends, there is a section of the queer community who would eat Richard up with a spoon.
I mean, look at him. But that's fine.
He's so cute. He would.
And he's there. He's having the best time.
I know.
Like, why wouldn't you want to go and dance along with Richard? Whatever. It's annoying.
Whatever.
But I guess Galavant is over there shirtless. And the show has, in the canon of the show, Galavant is just, I don't know, the sort of person. Perfect?
Quote unquote perfect.
That's exactly I gotta be honest with you. That's exactly my problem with this show, which is that no part of me finds Galavant attractive. And so when I watch this show, it's almost like I have to suspend my disbelief and just accept that everyone in this universe finds him deeply attractive. And everyone in this universe, when he walks into a room, attention will be put on him. And I can't think about it and I can't rationalize it because I don't really see it.
No, I think that's fair. I think it's entirely fair to sit there and be like, because I think what the show is also kind of able to make fun of because they've put, so many eggs in this Galavant basket.
Yeah.
Is Galavant, for all intents and purposes, for the American aesthetic, is the atypical example of an attractive, white, straight man. He has some muscles, but not too many. He's not overly hairy, except for that beard. I don't know what's happening with that beard for season 2. I have no idea what's going on there. But like he's a brunette. He's sort of rustically charming. He's also like not a super great person. Which I would also like to point out is in some ways the standard American of like, yes, you can be X, Y, and Z, and you don't necessarily have to have a great personality. You don't have to which is fine. It's fine. But yeah, I can 100% see if like you're not into that. It makes the entire show feel very, like Isabella, like we were just talking about Isabella. Like, is it me?
No, that is exactly how I feel sometimes when I watch this show. I'm like, is it me?
No, that's fair.
Am I the? And so that's why, you know what? Funnily, it didn't even occur to me that no one in the bar was hitting on Richard, because I've accepted that in the canon of the show, when Galavant walks into a bar, everyone flirts with him. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of bar it is.
Right. Well, and again, we've also talked about this a lot, but like the sort of sexlessness of Richard.
Yes. Which we have to talk about as we're talking about these two episodes. And it will come up in episode 2, and we're going to talk about it. And I don't love all of it, but it's... it was in watching these episodes that it reminded me of this sort of warped sensibility of, virginity versus sexual attraction versus even having the basic understanding of what sexual attraction and orientation even are. Right. Because again, you could see this as a very ace person walking into a queer bar and being like, yeah, I'll dance and sing along to the music. I'm perfectly happy with this. And no one's hitting on him. And that's perfectly fine. And that's fine. Like that all tracks. What does not track is how he is also incapable of picking up on the fact that everyone is hitting on Galavant.
I know.
I'm like, if you're in the bar and you're fine with no one hitting on you, that's cool. But I don't understand why he can't pick up on basic
human interaction.
Yes.
I know. This is what bothers me so deeply, because it's we've talked about it already. I'm going to try not to talk about it overly again too much. Yeah. But this bar, the bar in general is like one of my favorite things about season 2. Like, I love that it's here. I love that we have a gay bar in the middle of what's supposed to be medieval England. Like, I know it's a joke and I know it's played for laughs, and that there's a part of me that doesn't fully agree with that, but that's fine. But like, I really genuinely wanted this to be here, and I was so glad it was, because there's a raunchiness of like, Ren fairs and things like that we don't always get to see in stuff. Everyone will have heard our Robin Hood Men in Tights review by this point. So so there it is. But like, you don't always get to see that, because a lot of times it's really sterilized, where it's like the woman is the damsel and the man's the hero, and like, meh.
Yeah.
But you have a gay bar in the middle of the forest.
Raunchiness, but it's like only some people are allowed to be raunchy, right? Or it's only like one brand of raunchy. Whereas we would like all the brands, please.
Exactly. And you know what? I'm just really happy for Kylie Minogue. I feel like she's living her best life.
Yeah. Stellar song. Truly.
Oh, so good. It's catchy. Like, even though I saw this episode weeks ago, I can remember the refrain, like verbatim in my head. I'm singing it in my head as we speak. But yes, so that's the bar. And funnily enough, we, I guess Uncle Keith never actually left, because we run into Uncle Keith.
Aha!
And we get to have this sort of, funny haha for laughs moment of like, you don't belong here. And then Richard says something, and then he's like, maybe you do belong here. But like, we also get this Keith moment of like, I need to help you escape.
Yeah.
And I love this whole escape plan, because what they do is they leave through the women's room, which nobody ever uses because there's only ever men in the bar.
Yep. It's literally,
and they just needed it for code.
They started building a ladies' room and then stopped building it halfway through. So when you walk
soon as they
through
hit
the door
code,
that says
that was
ladies, it just opens into the forest.
It's such a good escape plan. I love it so much. I also, I know it was played for laughs, and I'm not super happy about that, but I really love I can't go with you. My destiny is here. And then it's a boy named Destiny.
I know. There's pieces of this where I'm like, I'm a little uncomfortable. I don't know how to feel. I don't know if we're laughing at it or with it. And that's always the line that's kind of dicey. But one piece
I will say I laughed when it happened. And I was like, I'm also here for it. As long as it's a consensual relationship. I'm here for this winter, summer.
I laughed more, I think, of the 3 little jokes they make around Uncle Keith. The Destiny joke, the you don't belong here, I belong here joke. The first one he made was actually the one I laughed hardest at, which is that Richard says, Dad says you entered the enchanted forest and never came out. And Keith goes,
right.
Other way around, kid.
That as a queer person, yes.
That was the one I was like, aha, this is the joke.
This is the joke. This is the joke that is the good joke that you could probably still tell now in the year of our Lord 2022. Because not only is it funny across all spectrum of sexual orientation, is that joke funny? I maintain that if you are straight, you will still laugh at this joke.
And it's like, and this is part of why Richard was so confused about the enchanted forest. He misunderstood the story. Which really, I mean, look, how many conversations did Richard actually have with his father that actually were good? You know what I mean? Like, his parents kind of seemed like crap anyway. But even regardless of that, like, I 100% would be, so, you know, there's a queer piano bar that I like to frequent called Marie's Crisis. I would 100% just be like, oh yeah, so in Marie's Crisis, and not explain what I'm talking about until someone goes, what's that? You know what I mean? And having a gay bar named Enchanted Forest is 100% that thing, as he went into the Enchanted Forest and never came out. Why would you specify that that's a bar? Why? You know. Also, and I maintain this is my headcanon, my personal headcanon. Okay.
For Enchanted Forest. The reason it is named Enchanted Forest is so that people can talk about it and you're not 100% sure if they're talking about a gay bar or an actual Enchanted Forest.
Oh,
and that
100%.
helps people. That helps people maintain their anonymity from being gay in probably what is this super homophobic period in history.
Yep. I accept that headcanon. Accepted. I think that makes perfect sense. And it's very clear that many of the characters in this show, Galavant included, are uncomfortable with the existence of this bar. So add this to the list of reasons I will never find Galavant attractive. He's a little bit of a homophobe. He is.
Yeah.
And
no, you're
that's
not
part
wrong.
of why he's uncomfortable in the bar, which is annoying. But again, I don't really like him, so fine.
I know.
But
I know.
I do wish that the show had pointed at it a little bit more, but you know, this wasn't really going to be the show that was able to do that. I'm with you in being appreciative that the bar just exists in this show.
They didn't have to do that. They didn't have to put in this episode at all. It didn't have to be
There's this one little moment I wanted to mention at the end of episode 1 between the two of them before we move on, because I feel like this is going to come up again, which is that also, I don't know whether the show is ever going to come back to the Enchanted Forest, but upon exiting this bar, I don't think Richard ever understands what this bar is. Because
I don't think he does either.
Uncle Keith and Destiny see Richard and Galavant off, and as Richard and Galavant are walking away, Richard goes, hey, do you think my Uncle Keith might be... And Galavant interrupts him and goes, yes, I think so. You're fine. Like, he says something along the lines of, like, dude, you're finally seeing it, right?
Yeah.
But then Galavant doesn't say it because he's uncomfortable and doesn't like to talk about this sort of thing. And Galavant interrupted Richard, so we never get to hear Richard finish his thought, which could mean that Richard was thinking about literally anything. He could have been about to say, do you think my Uncle Keith might
be an interior designer?
Be an interior designer. Do you think that my Uncle Keith might ever... literally anything. We don't know. And there it is.
I will say in a very like, and we have to move on, but like I think with the headcanon of the straights, it's instantly assumed that Richard gets it at that point, right? And I'm just like, but
he
without confirmation, you don't know.
He didn't get to say it.
I know.
And he hasn't understood anything so far. So why would I assume that he understands this?
You wouldn't.
I don't.
Galavant shouldn't. I think that's what bothers me more than anything else. Yeah. Like, I will agree with you. Like, Galavant is sort of played as this like lightly sprinkled homophobic action.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if there was a fight and one of the guys in the bar needed some rescuing, I don't think he would necessarily hesitate to fight for them.
Oh, I agree.
But he 100% doesn't. Here's a little mini PSA for the straights who listen to the episode. Hi, welcome to this podcast. If you're ever in a gay bar and you're kind of feeling uncomfortable because someone's hitting on you, I highly recommend you just essentially say, "Thank you so much. I'm taken, not interested." Use any kind of soft rejection that you feel is necessary for that particular situation. Don't just be uncomfortable and weird about it.
Right. Just
all you have to say is
say it.
You know, just say it. Because I'll guarantee you this, just like in any straight bar, if you get approached by somebody who you're not interested in, they will probably, feel the sting of rejection for a moment or two. But ultimately, they're not going to remember the interaction and they'll move on to someone else.
Well, here's hoping.
Here's hoping. Fingers crossed. If you say it right. If you say, let me put it this way. If you say it in such a way, these guys were literally just looking for some fun. Yes. I 100% believe that. The men in this Enchanted Forest bar were just looking for a fun evening. Person who goes, you know what? Thank you so much, but I'm actually it's not for me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm very flattered. I have somebody at home, something like that. If Galavant had said, I actually, you know what? The love of my life is waiting for me. I guarantee you every single one of those dudes would have been like, c'est la vie, and moved on to the next gentleman.
100% agreed. 100% agree. See, I was going to say that's very good advice for this particular situation. It's not, yes. I don't want to say that advice should be applied to every bar because that is not my experience at every bar. But
I mean, that's fair. I think once it comes down to the response should never be, "Excuse me, I'm straight, get the hell away from me."
Oh, yeah.
Which was the vibe I was getting from Galavant.
Yes.
And do not do that. I cannot stress enough how much you should not do that. Because you are coming into a gay space. You, as a straight person, are coming into a gay space. It's not your space. You should respect it. And if someone's hitting on you and you're just not interested, you should let them down gently and move on. Because they will then stop. In theory, they should stop. And if they don't stop, find security. But I'm just saying, this is a thing that people should know.
Yes, this is the thing. This was a good PSA. This was a necessary PSA.
Yeah, don't make your being straight the gayest problem.
Particularly in a gay bar.
Particularly in a gay bar, for sure. Be respectful. Anyway, yes, episode 2.
World's Best Kiss.
It's so funny because episode 1 was so much exposition. Episode 2, more things happen, and yet somehow it pretty much boils down to Isabella trying to remember the kiss she had with Galavant, and Galavant also separately, miles away, remembering this kiss. And they have this whole song that starts with how amazing this kiss was and ends up being, actually, maybe it wasn't that great. Oh, no.
Oh. Well, I was going to say, speaking of episode 1 being chock full of exposition, I agree with you. A lot happens and yet nothing happens in episode 2. Because the one thing I don't think this show did well when it comes to the exposition is that I'm pretty sure either Galavant or Richard say, we're going back to the kingdom. We're going to regain the kingdom 12 times.
Yeah.
Or Galavant says, I'm going to rescue Isabella no less than 8 times in these 2 episodes.
I know.
Really could have just kept it to the song. We got it.
You know what? We're here. We got, oh, okay. You're still saying it. Okay. No problem. But yeah, so that is one aspect of the plot, as well as Isabella trying to escape Hortensia.
Yes.
But another aspect of that is the B plot, A plot, B plot.
What are you about to say?
Well,
then I'll judge.
Can't you just read my brains? There's your episode title. Can't you just read my brains? The Magdalena Gareth plot.
Yes.
This is the bad, awkward roommate situation. This is the, they're trying to sort of have this one-upmanship with each other.
Yes.
And one-upmanship with each other. I'm pretty sure that's not the word I said first.
I understood what you were saying.
Whoops. And by the end of it, they actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, by the end of it, they do actually start to genuinely like each other.
Yes. Or it's more like it's that they find some common ground, which is what Sid has asked them to do. And I think what's funny about it is, first of all, I think you were right. This is the B plot. Magdalena and Gareth.
And the C plot is Richard and his virginity.
Yes, which we'll talk about. Ha ha ha, chinks. Okay. Yes, I think that they find some common ground, which is they both realize that the one thing they have in common is that they're annoyed at Sid. They throw him out the window. I'm just skipping to the end of this episode because that's what we have to do at this point. Then they decide to go and throw more servants out the windows because this is the thing they have in common. And what's funny about it is that I remember talking about this when we were talking about season 1. And when I was like, I don't understand why Magdalena and Richard, even though they aren't sexually attracted to each other, I don't understand why they can't just vibe on being horrible people. Right? Like that should have been their relationship. They should have just been in that together. And then Magdalena can go and have her, whatever she would like to call the men that she spends time with. She can go and have those flings or relationships or whatever on the side, but then just be a terrible person with Richard. Because that's what she's doing with Gareth. They're not sleeping together. They're not together in a relationship sense.
I have to spoil something for you.
Are they going to?
I have to spoil something for you. Yes. That's what they're leaning towards.
Okay.
They're leaning towards actually being together. And I apologize. That was part of that was on me for being like, no, that happens in this episode, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure this is where they start. Like, yes, it starts with, like now Gareth has a title. So now he's like trying to add little personal touches to the castle. Magdalena is just not having it. And some of it is in really poor taste. And some of it is just like, why just keep it in your room?
I mean, he puts a painting of dogs jousting over the fireplace. So
I know.
About as
I didn't think it was that bad.
Stereotypical as you would like it to be.
Know.
They have a great song together titled in which they agree to disagree. So their common ground is that they disagree about everything. I can kind of see the show pushing them in that direction. Up to this point, I'm not seeing any sort of romantic inclination between the two. Like, it's just, not happening.
I'm interested to see what you think once it actually happens, because I'm not mad at it, but I'm also like, I don't think I needed it. Like, I would have been perfectly happy, as you said, just having like two people with common ground, just ruling a kingdom, and they're both sort of not great people, but like they get along and they work well together, and that's it.
Right. Like being terrible
they bonded
together.
they bonded over their mutual terribleness. But yeah, so we have that plot line.
Yes.
And then we have, look, let's talk about it very quickly. Let's talk about the
Richard and Galavant, or Galavant and Isabella?
No, the virginity plot line.
So Richard and Galavant, who are walking. Yes. They're doing a lot of walking.
They're doing a lot of walking. They come across a fair. There is a unicorn at the fair because there's a petting zoo. And the unicorn is very taken with Richard.
Yes.
And the proprietor of this petting zoo is talking about how, unicorns, they're very good with children, and also, people who've never, known the touch of a woman, I think is how he says it. And Richard,
I think he says like pure in spirit and pure in body.
Yes, awfully. Pure in body.
And it's like, because Richard's like, what do you mean pure in body? And they're like, well, you've clearly never known the touch of a lady.
Without saying so much, that's essentially what the man says. And Richard, being rightly offended, like stands up and walks away.
Right.
But it's a running joke that this unicorn will not leave him alone. Mm-hmm. And it's like he keeps following him around the fair.
I don't even think he's offended. I think that he's upset about being outed as a virgin.
I think
he doesn't
that's
want
what I mean.
people to know that he's a virgin.
Yeah.
And now everyone does, quote, quote, because his unicorn is following him around.
No, that's exactly what I mean. He doesn't want to be seen as a virgin, which, given the time period, here we are. But like, given when the TV show was also made, I mean, I know it was 2015, but like having opinions about this thing and the way it's like portrayed is bad. It's bad.
I know.
I don't like it.
Like the unicorn piece of it, I wasn't into. We've already talked about the gay bar piece of it, and you know what? Now that you have sort of primed me to see this character as being like a coded ace character, even though the show won't say that they are, I picked up on a line about eating cake.
Oh, really?
Yes. At the end of episode 2, Galavant and Richard are having a conversation. I don't even remember how the conversation starts, but Richard is like, basically says that he's had a tough year. Like his wife left him, his brother tried to kill him, like blah, blah, blah. And then Richard goes,
yeah, having a real sob story.
All I want to do is curl up in my room and eat cake. And this is pretty much after Galavant is talking about how all he wants to do is get back together with Isabella. Now I see it. And I don't like it.
But and again, listeners, I know we've said it before, but just in case this is the first episode you're listening to, which why? Go back and listen to the other 4. But but this was the, you know, the inability to have like this word for ace people at a certain point in time, all the way up through, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. Like it was just not widely talked about, not widely accepted, not widely understood. And personally, I still think it's, you know, ace spectrum is a spectrum, but and like, people don't.
What kind of messed with my brain was like, it is so clear that they don't actually understand what it means to be an ace person or the ace experience. So like, was the cake line unintentional, or like, was it an accident, or did they put it in there and I can't figure it out because I can't tell how much they know.
The ace line about cake, because it's an ace line. It's coded ace all over the place. It's just stamped ace all over its body. The cake line is 100% an accident. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying people who don't even understand, because really, here's the crux of it. And I promise I won't spend half an hour talking about it. I promise, because I know we're starting to run out of time. The crux of it isn't that they misunderstand ace people. The crux of it is that they misunderstand virgins in general.
Yeah.
They don't understand, like, people who don't understand others who, because again, as we've established, he's demi, like he's canonically demi. He says, I always thought it should be with somebody you loved. He says that. He is canonically demi. They don't understand what that means. No. They don't understand what being a virgin actually means in this context. It's just because he never found somebody that he fell in love with and wanted to have sex with. They think he has absolutely zero understanding of sexual anything.
Right.
This is why he can't understand what a gay bar is. This is why he can't understand when Magdalena is having sex with the jester, that he's not like, they're not just telling jokes. He doesn't get it. And I think it's people fundamentally misunderstanding an entire, I almost said generation, but an entire section of people who literally just wait to have sex. It's not that they're uneducated about the act itself.
Right.
It's that they just aren't thinking about it 24/7. Oh no, how can that possibly exist on the planet? Because I guess everyone else, which by the way, not everyone else, but whatever, fine for this scenario. But like the media interpretation is that everyone else is thinking about sex so much that this virgin must have no idea what we're talking about.
Right. Because how else could a person survive and exist in this world, right? They must just have no clue.
They must have no clue. And that's why I'm like, it is a mistake to call Richard ace, because it's being written by straight people who are making a comedy show who don't fully understand what ace is and couldn't at the time. They didn't have words for it. They literally didn't have the vocabulary. You know what I'm saying? Like they they didn't have it.
Like the discourse wasn't as advanced, is what you're saying. Right.
Yeah.
Like it was there and present.
It was there, but it was not, well, I almost want to say it wasn't given enough space.
Right, or maybe
even
it
in
wasn't
the context
as well known or as...
Yes.
And as a result, less easily accessible, to those outside the community.
You would have had to do a little, like way more research than say now. Yes. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
like if you Googled aspectrum and like asexuality and demisexuality, you can find a ton of information about it now. I'm talking about in 2015. I guarantee you, if you Googled that, no one would have any idea what you were talking about. You might have found like 5 results.
Right. Or
you know what I'm saying? Like
a subreddit you to dig to find. Subreddit?
Exactly.
2015. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I mean, I know listeners, I know I'm getting into sort of the weeds of this, and there could have been more, in 2015 than I'm making it sound like. My point is that they weren't doing that.
No.
They were making a comedy show where it's funny that the virgin doesn't know anything about sex. Mm-hmm. And this had been a trope in comedy for a very long time.
Yeah.
They weren't making him ace. We ascribe ace to him because that's what he is. He is a demisexual person, but the show has zero to do with that.
Yeah. It's like they accidentally wrote a character they knew nothing about.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it bothers me to no end. By the way, my favorite ace character in media is Jessica Rabbit, and people can fight me on the internet. She is ace, and she is perfect. She is a beautiful being. See, now we have to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit because you don't know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about because it's really hard to exist in this world without knowing who Jessica Rabbit is. So I know who that is, but I don't remember. And I think that once upon a time when I was a child, I stumbled on that movie when it was playing on TV one time, but I didn't understand anything that was happening in it. And as a result, honestly, can't even tell you the basic plot line for the show. Film. Can't tell you the basic plot line. I don't even know who she is in it. So
we will have to watch it again for this show.
I
think we should. I think we should because again, this was a point that was brought up to me much later than life of like, she's a perfect example of an ace person. And I was like, I never thought of that in my entire like brain is blown completely. Yeah. But anyway.
Okay, so speaking of
this virginity thing bothers us, but that's fine. We've talked about it.
It bothers both of us. And what's annoying to me about this show, let me pivot to a more positive part of the show, is that there are certain little repeated jokes that are so good. And I wish that they had deleted all of the terrible jokes about the king's virginity and just tripled the number of jokes about things like Isabella's amulet. Like, that is legitimately funny.
It's so funny to me because again, that's the comedy of like, and you have a season 2.
Yeah.
And you can throw whatever you want in a season 2. This amulet that she's been wearing this whole time, and I can't stress enough, this whole time.
Like every day since she was born. And I love that multiple characters in the show are like, but I've never seen you wear that before. And she's like, every now and then I don't wear it. You might be remembering a time I don't wear it, but I've been wearing it ever since I was born. And the chef is literally like, no, but we spent a significant amount of time together in the prison cell. We went through security and we had to put everything into a little basket. I've never seen this before. And then later when Gwen jumps in and she's like, I agree. It's new.
I agree. It's new. It's so, Chef and Gwen are amazing. I love them so much. I'm so glad they're here and I'm so glad they're together and happy. But like, I love that this amulet is there because I feel like I could see the through line in the writer's room of what they were going to do. And they were like, well, what if we had like a crystal ball that kind of worked like, like a cell phone and she could just like call up anybody. And it's like, oh, cool. Oh, wait, but how is Isabella going to talk to them? Well, maybe she's wearing this amulet and she always wears this amulet. And they were like, she always wears the amulet, huh? And then they like went with it and I was so here for it. It's one of those jokes that as you binge series and they change things and you're like, but you changed that and they're like, no we didn't. It was like, but you did though.
And some shows do it better than others. Like I'm gonna go back to a show we're constantly referencing, like how sometimes you have a little sister and no one's ever met the little sister before but she's definitely been there this whole time.
This whole time.
This whole time.
This whole time.
This
that was
show.
handled so well in that other show also. But
Yes,
but
it
maybe
was.
one day we'll talk about that show. But yes, the amulet is basically being used as like a cell phone connection, but the connection's not great. So it's like we get that classic misunderstanding of like, you can't quite hear what your boyfriend is saying. And it sounded really terrible. Like it sounded like he was saying some terrible things.
Yes.
But you couldn't get every single word. But I mean, he definitely said those terrible things. And so instead of trying to leave, Isabella just sort of resigns herself to stay with Harry.
Yes.
And
basically. I think that made the joke even better, weirdly enough. Like that it wasn't randomly just thrown there in there for laughs. It was put in there because it was narratively necessary for there to be a way for Isabella and Galavant to miscommunicate with each other. Like it was necessary in moving their plot lines forward. And so we simply had to introduce an amulet, and this is how we're going to do it.
It was perfect. And like I'm not always a huge fan of like the romantic comedy with the misunderstandings and the miscommunications, because I'm of the opinion that you should still talk about the thing that people said and not just accept it at whole cloth.
Yeah.
Especially for somebody who you think you're going to spend the rest of your life with.
Right.
But like I feel like it was just done really well here because
it was done well here because it's not like they're so angry at each other they refuse to communicate, which is what I don't like in a romantic comedy, right? When two characters are angry and uncomfortable and so they choose not to communicate. I'm like, well, that's not a healthy relationship. We need to do some work.
Yeah, you
there,
have other
right?
problems there other than what they said.
Other than whatever you are currently angry about, your lack of communication, that's your problem, and that's what you should be working on. But in this particular show, there's a miscommunication. Then she drops the amulet breaks, and it's not that they don't want to communicate, it's that they cannot.
It's that they can't.
It's that they can't. And I like that what he says to her kind of touches on the insecurity that they hinted on quite a bit in season 1, which is that some part of Isabella completely believes that Galavant would give up on her or leave her and tell her to marry Harry and not come for her. Because for the majority of season 1, he was in love with another woman, or thought he was anyway. Right?
Yeah, no, it's that, you know, like she had to fight so hard to get his attention.
Yes.
And now that she has it, he almost has to prove that he is also as invested as she is, which again is classic of one person loves the other person a little bit more. And, you know, and you have to kind of bridge that gap. We definitely have to talk about one more things, but did we cover all the things that happened?
We covered most of the things that happened. Let me give just a quick little skim
review
here. We have Isabella. We didn't really talk about how Isabella attempts to escape. We don't have to get into the weeds, but I do think it's important that she now has a key to her cell, and that everyone is on her side in helping her escape. The final piece is the King's Sword, which is probably going to be important later.
Yeah. They definitely talk about that. It's sort of a MacGuffin, but here we are.
Here we are, right? So not the king, sorry. Richard, because he is not the king. Gareth is the king. The only thing we didn't talk about is that as Galavant and Richard are leaving the fair, Richard's boots having been mended, he pulls a sword out of a random stump to like scare the unicorn away from him. And he's, finally able to stand up to this unicorn in the world because he's so angry that Gareth has betrayed him. That was the other important piece. It's revealed in the phone call that Gareth has betrayed him.
Yeah.
And it turns out that on the stump was written the words, "The hero sword to be drawn by the one true king." And I'm sure that that's going to come up again.
Yes. It will definitely come up again. I love that moment for Richard. And considering what Richard has lived through, and I know I mentioned to you before, like Richard has a lot of growing to do, but I think the person he grows into is way better than where we started with Richard. It's interesting to see once all of his power is stripped away, like who he really is as a person.
Right.
But yes, one more thing. Do you have a thing?
I mean, there's so much we didn't talk about. It's almost going to be hard to like pick one. How about you go? You go.
I'll go. I know I talked about Kylie Minogue. I really like the guest star in the second episode also. His name is Simon Callow. Okay. He played the wizard.
His name sounds familiar. Do I know him from somewhere? Probably.
His face
in a million looked
things.
Familiar. Like when he showed up on screen, I was like, this is one of those people who's been in probably 8 things I've seen, but I just never, you know.
Oh no, 100%. He is definitely that guy. He's the guy that like usually it's, you know, like a historical drama or something like that, but he's had a very wide, fulfilling career, I think. And he's a delight to watch because he's such a good character actor. I love the things he did here. You know, the little side jokes that he was able to make. I love the, you know, like the wife calling him randomly. I think at one point.
Him saying that long distance relationships never work out. I love that.
Yes.
Oh, those things rarely work out.
Those things rarely work out. Which I think was like a continuation of the joke of like, oh, well, she's all the way over there, isn't she? But yeah, no, I love seeing him anytime he's in literally anything. I feel like I could watch him read the phone book. I don't know. There's something about him that's like weirdly charismatic, but also everyman.
Yeah.
No, that's my thing.
Okay. My one more thing is less something I have thoughts on and more something I have questions about, which is something I'm hopeful about. And maybe it turns out this blows up in my face, but I really hope this show does something with Sid. I would like this show to do something with Sid. Like I think it's funny that the joke in the opening song is that Sid always gets interrupted and he gets interrupted, and that's fine, right? But after that first song, I'm gonna need this show to take it just a half step or two further with Sid. And they are sort of moving in that direction. He actually has a role in the palace now. He is Gareth's assistant, and he does things like explain Magdalena and Gareth's schedule to them. So at least there's that, right? But Magdalena does also call him Brett, which we don't love. And so I'm just going to cross my fingers and choose to be hopeful that this show does in fact do something with Sid. But that's it. That's my one more thing. Yeah. Don't tell me if they do or don't.
No. I was just going to say, I do love that the running joke in season 1 for Sid was also that he was constantly overlooked because Galavant and Isabella were like making moon eyes at each other, but also arguing. Like,
no, that's true.
He's like a professional third wheel.
And it was funny because he was a third wheel, and it was funny because the whole thing was their relationship. But now that he's been separated from them, I think that's why it's standing out so much more to me that there exists a character who really has a lot of room to grow.
I got to be honest with you. I don't actually remember. So we're going to find out together.
Oh, love that for us.
Perfect.
All right. So I think that's the end of our podcast episode.
Yeah. No, we did it.
With that, friends, we would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, have you ever had an awkward roommate situation? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/clockpod.
That's right. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time.